Welcome to the Kairos Wisdom Keepers podcast, where ancient wisdom meets the modern healer. In our podcast, we share how ancestral soul wisdom and cyclical living support today's healers in activating greater wealth, health, intuition, and spiritual connection.
Welcome to our second episode of Kairos Wisdom Keepers, the abundance of the summer solstice. I'm Janet Raftis.
And I'm Lukas. And today we're going to talk about how intentionally working with the summer solstice cycle can support you in experiencing greater prosperity and overall well-being in your life.
So the summer solstice just passed. We're actually recording this during the summer solstice portal, though. And the summer solstice, which happens on around the 20th every year, is the longest day and the shortest night. So it is the time in which we are receiving the most light codes from the sun. And it has been celebrated for thousands and thousands of years throughout the world. There are archaeological ruins from Egypt to South America to England that all were designed around the summer solstice. It has been a part of a very sacred practice for people throughout the world for literally thousands of years.
Yeah. So as we dive in here, part of what we're working with is remembrance. It's the remembrance of connecting back into these cycles. And as we think about these structures, these monuments that have been erected around the world that people gathered at during the solstices, during the equinoxes, there is such importance to the continuation of that connection to the cycles, working with this energy. There's a reason that people gather. We've been separated, right? And now we're coming back into remembrance of connecting back into these cycles. Yeah. And it starts to anchor into our bodies. It's a remembrance that we're having here.
Absolutely. And the summer solstice and the summer cycle is the cycle of abundance. It is the time when the earth is flourishing. Gaia is going wild, right? Everything is growing. It was a time when people knew they could count on food, right? The crops were growing in the gardens, in the fields. Fruit was in the trees, right? So there's this experience of natural abundance. And it was celebrated because it was the time that they could begin to plan out the rest of the year. They knew that come fall, they would be harvesting, that they would have all of the fruits of their labor manifested in full and ready to nourish them. And so this was a time to be celebrated, to be honored, right? And it is because we have longer light during this time. We have longer days, we have more energy, our vital life force energy is higher. And that is because we are taking in these particular codes, these light codes that along with the longest days, they signal to our hormones what to do. They signal to our biology what to do. We have more energy to create and tend to the cultivation of what we are growing, right? Both literally and metaphorically. And this is why when you tune into the goddess religions, which were around for thousands of years before the rise of the male monotheistic deity, prior to that, the summer solstice was the time of pregnancy. That is when the goddess was pregnant. And it also correlated to the full moon. And we are also in a full moon portal right now. So this is really amplified this year with this idea of fullness.
Right. There's such a power to being in the full moon energy during the summer solstice, because when we look at our lunar cycles that line up with our menstrual cycles, ovulation lines up with the summer solstice. right? And when we're bleeding, when we're at that point in our menstrual cycle, we're in the fallow period of winter, of Yule. So right now in the lunar cycle, we are actually at a time of ovulation, which means magnetism, which means visibility, which means like, ooh, juiciness out in the world. That's the bigness of the full moon. So in this particular summer solstice, it is actually lining up with the full moon, which means we're getting even more light codes because we're receiving the light that is being reflected off the moon at night, and it is amplifying the energy of this summer solstice. So there's every year there's a signature to the summer solstice, the spring equinox. There's an archetypal energy, but there's also a specificness to each year, just like we are moving up the spiral in our lives where we have themes that keep circling around, but we're evolving. And so every time we hit a theme or a trigger, we have a different version of it. In the same way as the seasons keep turning, when we come into each summer solstice, there's archetypal energies, but then there's also unique energies based on what's happening with the moons, with the stars, with the collective energy that we're moving through.
Yeah. So everything moves in cycles, right? And so the earth has her cycles, which in our tradition, we refer to as the wheel of the year. The moon has its cycles. When the wheel of the year, of course, is for us 365 days most of the time. And then we have the lunar cycle at 28 days. And then we have like all these other cycles in nature. We have the 24-hour cycle, right? And so what we get, there is a signature to each cycle, but the overlay of the cycles is always reinventing itself. It's always a fresh cocktail of light codes, like stellar codes, everything that comes together. It's kind of like, when you're born, right? Astrology is based on your unique blueprint, which is like what the cosmos looked like, that snapshot of the cosmos when you came into the world, and how those energies in that exact configuration have created you and your personality. And here we're talking about, every year summer solstice is going to have what is summer solstice about it, right? It's going to have those, it's always going to be abundance. It's always going to have heightened light codes. It's always going to be a time to get out into the world, to be creative, to cultivate, to tend to whatever you are literally or metaphorically pregnant with. And then on top of that, it's going to be interspersed with these other ingredients, the lunar ingredients, the positioning of the planet's ingredients, and what's going on in your part of the world. And so we can look at it in different ways, but no matter what, at this moment in time, this particular snapshot is influencing you. It is influencing your biology, your psychology, your spirituality, your intuition. It is impacting every single aspect of your being, all the way down to your cells.
It's so important to really get that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So as we start tuning into this frequency of an abundance of light, there is an abundance of light streaming into the planet right now. There's an abundance of energy streaming into the planet right now. There is an abundance of awakening streaming into the planet right now. Awakening codes are coming through in this particular summer solstice portal that are bringing alive these ancient parts of us. And there is a magnetism to what's being born and turned on inside of us. And there's so much importance to going outside, to connecting with the light, not just being in the light, but connecting to the light itself, connecting to the energy of this portal and allowing it to stream into you and allowing yourself to get the messages from the light. Because it's one thing to just go outside and be like, oh, I'm in the sunlight. And it's another thing to have a relationship with the sunlight. And that's the deeper piece here, is coming into relationship with light itself. And the summer solstice portal is one of the best opportunities to do that because it is the peak of light. Really feel that. Feel into the peak of light. We are at an apex of light. We are at a peak time of relationship to light that is giving us information, that is giving us insight and wisdom, celestial wisdom. It's deep body wisdom. It's deep body memory. And as that is awakening in us, there is greater well-being that is awakening in us. There is a greater understanding of how true abundance, true wealth, true well-being actually works. That information is streaming in right now. We can't convey enough the importance of building your relationship to light, your relationship to the sun.
Yes, so true. And in this way, the light, those solar codes, they are wisdom keepers. There is wisdom in those light codes. And we have been raised to be so disconnected from the cycles. I mean, most people don't even know what summer solstice is until they're in adulthood. And so we've really been trained out of this. And we will talk a lot about this on the podcast, but it is really this patriarchal dominator model of society that we've been under for the past 5,000 years that has gradually disconnected us more and more from these traditions, which is why there is such need of this remembrance. And in particular, in the last couple hundred years, it has become even more pronounced as we've had electricity and more concrete and more buildings and bigger cities. But what we really want to get to here is that these light codes, when you, as Ina was saying, develop a relationship with them, right? Anytime you come into conscious co-creation with anything, you are really allowing the fullness of that thing to share itself with you and to activate itself within you. And so if you are interacting with the summer solstice and the energy of summer in a way that is taking in the abundance of light, taking in the abundance of food, right? And for our ancestors, they could just walk down the lane and be like, oh, there's fruit on this tree, right? I mean, that's abundance. and things may have shifted some about that. I mean, you can still, in a lot of places, you can still actually just find fruit on trees, but we've been indoctrinated to believe that the earth is scarce. And actually, the earth is so abundant. And so when we return, when we get into this remembrance of these cycles and what each one has for us, then we are able to get to the abundance of each of them. They're all abundant in something because the universe is just abundant. There's no scarcity in the universe. It may look like there's scarcity, and there may be circumstances that feel scarce, right? But the actual universe is abundant. The universe will give us a lot of whatever we are focused on. So when we consciously interact with these light codes, when we are out in the sun and we're soaking in these light codes and we are really attuned to these light codes are my abundance codes. They are lighting me up. They are activating my biology. They are healing me. They are guiding me. What is my message, right? We can really attune to the message of summer, which really does revolve around the energy of abundance. And when we do that, we will start to experience abundance in our work, in our relationships, in our interactions, in nature. We will start to have the experience of all that summer is able to offer us, all that the energy of pregnancy is able to offer us, all that having so much at our fingertips, right, is able to offer us.
Yeah. And another way that you can connect in and build your relationship with the abundance of light that is happening right now is by noticing the interaction of the sunlight with water. So whether you're by a stream or a lake or the ocean or a pond, or even in the morning when there's dew on the plants, dew on the leaves, looking into the water and receiving the light codes of light interacting with water, and also how light moves through leaves. And as a horticulturist for many decades now, and a landscape designer, I was always looking at the interaction of light and plants and water. And now, even more so, I'm understanding that part of my fascination with all of that was because of the information that I was receiving during that interaction of light and water and plant material. And so in the morning when you go outside, I mean, it's so powerful to do this during solstice and equinox portals, is to really interact with how sunlight meets water. And you can even do this in the winter, during the winter solstice. If you're in in a northern climate, I will look at how the sunlight comes through snow, how it's reflected, and I will take the light in, because there's a difference in looking directly at the sun versus looking at a form of water, whether it's moving water or ice or snow, and receiving the codes that come off of that element, along with how the light moves through the trees and the shadows. All of those are forms of medicine and of messages. So this is an incredible time to start really getting elemental. And as that happens, again, greater abundance, greater well-being, greater messages, greater understanding of who you are as a human being with spirit flowing through you, because your connection to spirit gets even deeper and deeper as you're getting out of your head and just in that space of light and also sound through the seasons. The summer solstice has a particular sound, whatever region you're in. So in the mornings, I love to just receive the sun, the light, the plants, and simultaneously listening to the birds, the water bubbling by me, and the crickets. All the different sounds are informing your biology. And so when you allow yourself to get out of your head and just be present with with the light and the sounds and nature itself, again, you're receiving so much information about who you truly are and the messages that you need to move forward. And all of that is abundance. All of that is prosperity, because it's you dropping deeper and deeper into this life experience, being more and more at home in your body and more at home in your place in the ecosystem itself. And when you understand yourself as part of the ecosystem and not separate from it, separation from the ecosystem is scarcity. Understanding that you're part of the ecosystem and you're working with the ecosystem, that is true abundance.
Yes, that is such true abundance. And as you were thinking as you were talking, I was thinking too, right? Water is programmable. And so
Yes.
something so powerful and so simple you can do is you can put your drinking water outside in the sunlight and allow the water to be programmed. Of course, you can do this under the moon too. You can put it out under the full moon or whatever energy of the moon that you want to work with, and with the sun as well. So throughout the year, of course, you can do it anytime. There are always solar codes hitting the earth, whether it's, overcast or not. But you can actually put your water out and allow it to be programmed, right? And then you drink that water and you're drinking in that programming and receiving the programming. And we all know that we are mostly water as well, which is a big part of why these codes do imprint on you. I mean, we are made up of water and light. We're stardust and water and matter, like actual Gaia matter, earth matter, all of that. When the water comes in and it's programmed with these solar codes, it is interacting with our biology. It's imprinting in us. So and then when we're conscious about it, when we're really interacting and co-creating with it, and we're allowing ourselves to drink in these abundance codes and allowing them to wash through us, allowing ourselves to be held in them, it is really powerful.
Yeah. And I love that you said that so much, because this is such a great time to create sun teas and to program that water with the fresh mint Janet and I were joking about. This program is brought to you by peppermint oil, because we love peppermint oil so much. And I love sun teas. You can create your mint teas by putting fresh mint in your water, by putting cucumbers in your water, strawberries in your water, what's fresh from your garden or fresh from, local producers, where you can put local light codes through mint, strawberries, cucumbers, all of that in the water. Then you're receiving the entire interaction of sunlight with water with plant material. And you can do witchy spells over that. And we're going to have a podcast on rituals, so we can go deeper into that.
Yeah, it's so good though. You're programming what you want to hold in your literal biology. I mean, it is serious spell casting with things that are right at your fingertips. And again, so we come back to there is an abundance here. There is abundance of potential. There's an abundance of being able to receive and take in from the universe exactly what will most support you right now. Because in every cycle, in every season, you have available to you when you are living as a part of the ecosystem, right? What Ina said before, when you're actually living as a part of the ecosystem, everything you need as a human, everything your body needs, everything that you spiritually need is available for you. We have just been programmed to believe that we have to live in summer all the time, first of all. Right? That's not sustainable. Summer is amazing during summer. This is the time to have more energy, be out, create, because that's what the environment is programmed for. And that is what we are programmed for. But to be that same way in winter is not sustainable, right? But there is also a different type of abundance in winter, right? And so when we're talking about summer abundance, we are talking about actually making the money, creating the connections, right? Doing the things that are going to provide us with financial material wealth. Because this is when the food is growing, right? This is for thousands and thousands of years. Our lineages have been programmed that this is the money, honey. Summer is the money.
It's the currency of life. It is the great abundance, the great wealth, the great well-being is happening now.
Yeah. Yeah. Whereas in winter, for the winter solstice and Yule, you have an abundance of rest time, right? It's not necessarily about bringing in all the money then. When we get down, and that doesn't mean you can't earn money during winter, but what we're talking about here is when you really attune to the cycles, this is the time to be tending to everything that you planted in the spring, both literally and metaphorically, because what you cultivate right now, what you tend to, right? That baby in your belly, right? Like that's why it's the mother goddess. That pregnancy is abundant. It is abundant. And you've been programmed over thousands and thousands of years, right? So underneath the more recent programming is a different type of programming. It's the ancestral programming. It's the wisdom keeper programming. The wisdom keeper programming that is down below the brainwashing of the last, several hundred years, a few millennia, is that this is a time of abundance. This is the time to cultivate, because what you cultivate now, you are going to harvest in the fall. We're starting at Lammas, which is the beginning of August. It's your first harvest, and then your second harvest coming in the fall. And so this is the time to be at it. This is the time to do it.
And we know that so many of you who are listening in are healers and intuitives, and a lot of you are creating your own path and entrepreneurial and creating your own businesses, bringing your unique medicine and your unique services into the world. And for those of you that are creating your businesses and your wealth through that line of bringing your medicine into the world, this is the time to be in action. This is the time to be in creation mode. This is the time to be building out your empire.
Yeah.
The empire that's unique to your own wealth DNA, because everybody is different in what your wealth DNA is. And we actually have another episode coming up on your healer's archetype. And that comes together with what we're talking about here, is when you start to embody your healer's archetype, and then you start to work with the cycles, bringing your healer's archetype into the summer solstice and into this energy of building what you want to create. And it could be a business, or it could be what you're building in your home, what you're building in your community, what you're building in your family. This is the time to be in action and creating the currency of the well-being of life itself. Right.
Yeah.
And, the well-being in motherhood and getting your kids, all of that, the abundance of family connection time, that's why, summers kids aren't in school and you get to be out playing and interacting and really connecting with your kids and connecting with nature. And for those of you that are mamas out there, or grandmamas or aunties, that you're feeling the abundance of relationship and the abundance of connection to family by getting out in nature during this time.
Yeah. And if we think about it ancestrally, why were kids out of school during the summer in the first place? Because there was so much work, right? The family, they needed all hands on deck out in the fields to really take care of all of that food.
Yeah.
Right. And so that's why we had that. And so the family they came together and worked together to tend to that which they were growing, and so we still have the remnants of it, only we've disengaged from it so much. And so, we understand, because we are living in 2024 and it is a very different world, right? And a lot of you work 9-to-5 jobs, and a lot of you can't fully divest from all of that right now. And we get it. What we can do, though, is what we can do. We can determine how we can begin to create the shift. What can you do differently tomorrow? Can you get out and watch the sunrise? Can you get out at high noon and take in the fullness of the summer codes, right? Can you interact with your water differently? Can you put some water outside in the morning and then, a big gallon jug or whatever, and come home at night and have it all infused, right? With the light codes and the cucumber and the strawberries that were grown at the farm down the street, or that you got from your CSA. So these are all things you can start thinking about, because any shift is a part of the remembrance. And the more you start to shift, what you'll notice is that the more you're able to shift, and more will become apparent. And if you're someone who, we have so many clients like this, they are in the corporate world, but they have been wanting to transition out. What happens when they start to work with the cycles, when they start to attune to nature in this way, when they start to get all the downloads and all of the messaging, and they start to become imprinted with this way of living, is that they're able to transition out of those environments that they haven't felt right in anymore, right? And so it becomes a natural expression, because once you're doing all the things, your body is going to start co-creating with you. It's going to start co-creating with spirit and Gaia. It's like, I like this. This is good, right? Give me more of this. Give me more of this. Give me more of this, right? And eventually that's what happens.
We're reaching the tipping point.
We are.
And I loved what you were saying about connecting with families and summer and getting outside at this time, because part of this too is community. Mm-hmm. And not doing this in isolation and coming together with people, whether it's your immediate family, your partners, your friends, or even a larger collective of healers and intuitives that gather during these portals to create intentional, powerful ceremonies, like Janet and I do. And so many people around the world. That's what I love, is like all around the world, people are gathering at these times of the solstice portals. They're gathering in person. They're gathering online collectively. And for many, many years now, Janet and I have been doing channeled activations during the solstices and the equinoxes. And so we have channeled a very, very potent summer solstice activation this year that allows you to drop into these light codes, that allows you to go deeper into magnetism and visibility. And this activation is a very, very potent transmission of the frequencies of this particular summer solstice, working with the light of the sun and the light of the full moon. It activates the fuck out of you. And it's a very, very potent transmission of this particular summer solstice portal. So even if you're listening to this after the summer solstice, this recording is still going to give you these codes and this potent transmission. It's something that you can listen to multiple times. And Janet and I love doing these solstice activations so much because it amplifies your intentions. It brings you into deeper connection and ceremony and ritual. And we gather with hundreds of people while we channel these activations, which allows the intentions of hundreds of people to be channeled through us. And so there is a transmission that comes through that is just so deep and so profound. And so we just really encourage you, if you'd like to dive deeper into the energy of the summer solstice, to check out our activation down below in show notes.
Yes, I hope that you will join us for that summer solstice activation. They are so potent. And make sure you get outside into the light during this time, during this cycle. Sunrise if possible, high noon if possible, sunset. Allow yourself to really develop a relationship with the light that is being abundantly offered to you right now.
Yeah. So y'all, we have so much great information in store for you in this podcast. And if you'd like to hear more, please follow the Kairos Healers Academy on Instagram or any other social media channel. Like and subscribe, do all the things, because we have so much more that we're bringing forward in future podcasts.
Yes. Thank you so much for joining us for this episode of the Kairos Wisdom Keepers, where healers walk outside of time.